Alrighty, guys, so we are reading Monster High Monster Rescue Operation Find Cleo. And we're on part 8, and that's going to be page 89. And we're going to start reading right now. Moments later, the ghouls materialized into the middle of the Monster High library. Dracula was so startled to see them that he leaped up from his chair, knocking over the whole stack of books waiting to be shelved. "You're back!" he exclaimed. "I was so worried, but you made it. Hey, where's Cleo? Denial." "Frankie, what happened to your hand?" "Ghouls, are you okay?" Claudine began. "We're thirsty," Draculaura replied. "I don't suppose the creepteria is open yet?" "Not officially, but I think we can make special arrangements for you ghouls," Dracula said, with a twinkle of his eye. "Follow me." The ghouls dragged themselves down the hall to the creepteria, where they kicked off their shoes and spiraled out on the long benches while Dracula disappeared into the kitchen. Draculaura said, "It's so cool in here." "And dark," Frankie sighed. "I could take a nap right here," Claudine added, "except for all the banging. What is your dad doing, Drac?" Draculaura shrugged. "No idea," she replied. "Maybe he's testing out the new cappuccino machine." Sure enough, Dracula soon hurried into the creepteria, carrying a tray with 3 tall iced coffincinos. The ghouls grabbed them eagerly. Draculaura had never tasted anything so good before. Then Dracula put the pitchers of ice water on the table. "Drink some of this, too," he said. "You don't want to get dehydrated." "Thanks, Dad," Draculaura said gratefully. "This is just what we needed." "Tell me everything," he replied. "You arrived in the desert, then what?" The ghouls took turns telling him about everything that happened after the Monster High map collage that had dropped them in the middle of the desert. "We didn't really want to leave Frankie's hand behind, of course," Draculaura explained, "but we were all fading fast. It was not a pretty sight." "You did the right thing," Dracula told them. "Besides, we're going right back," Claudine said, "as soon as everybody rested and refreshed." Draculaura watched her father carefully. How would he react to Claudine's announcement? Would he say it's too dangerous? Would he forbid them to use the monster monologue again? "Well, of course you are," Dracula said, "and when you go back, you'll be ready." Then a mysterious smile and not another word. He left the creepterium. The ghouls looked at one another in confusion. "What was that about?" asked Frankie. Claudine took another sip of her drink. "Maybe he's going to make another round of cappuccinos," she said. "I could definitely use a double." "I'm not so sure," Draculaura replied, deep in thought. The ghouls turned to look at her. Maybe Dad is trying to tell us we need to really be ready for Operation Find Cleo," she continued. "Not just charge off into the desert without a plan, you know." "What kind of plan are you talking about?" asked Frankie. "I don't know," Draculaura admitted. She held out her arms. "But think about where we were. Monster High. The very first fully equipped high school for monsters, beastlies, and ghouls of all kinds. We got everything except students," guessed Claudine. "Exactly, which means Monster High is ready to go," Draculaura exclaimed. We can learn everything we need to know to survive in the desert and how to make Operation Find Cleo a success. For a moment, the other ghouls didn't say anything. Then Frankie started slowly nodding. I like it, she said. I like it a lot. I'll get started on the howl of history, Draculaura said. How about you, Frankie? The mad science lab, Frankie said right away. Then she turned to Claudine. Where will you be? Go, Claudine. I'm not sure yet, Claudine said. I guess I'll just wander around a little until I figure out where to do my research. Let's meet up back in the library in an hour, Draculaura said excitedly. See you ghouls later. Draculaura raced through the halls of Monster High so fast that she skidded on the polished floor and almost missed the howl of history. Luckily, Webby was near. He shot out his sticky strands of spiderweb and caught her tight. Thanks, Webby, Draculaura giggled as she pulled the web into her hair. Then she stepped into the history classroom, closed the door, and took a deep breath. The smell of classroom along was enough to make her even more excited about Monster High grand opening. It was a mixture of freshly sharpened pencils and creased parchment and ancient books of monster love, and the wall-size, weathered map of entire monster world, with a large leather globe and 500 volumes of Monsterpedia lining the walls. Draculaura knew that she'd come to the perfect place for her research. Now where to begin? Draculaura started to spin the globe slowly at first, then faster and faster. Placed few by a blur: Germany, Hawaii, Mexico, New York, Madrid. We've got a lot of pyramids waiting for us, she thought, spinning the globe until her index finger rested on Egypt. Maybe there's something in here that can help me narrow down where we might find Cleo. As if on cue, sparks started flying from the spinning globe. Draculaura jumped back in alarm, then leaned closer in amazement. It was almost as if the globe was trying to tell her something. The monster mapalog, she thought. Suddenly, maybe it's not the only thing that can help us find Cleo. Cleo! Draculaura said aloud. Her voice echoed in the empty room. I need to find Cleo! The globe spun back around the Egypt. Dozens of three-dimensional pyramids popped up on the globe surface. One of them seemed taller than the others. But how would Draculaura find the particular pyramid where she was back in the middle of the desert? The globe was cracking now, and bright lights of electricity formed the web across it. Cautiously, carefully, Draculaura reached out and gently touched the tip of the largest pyramid. It seemed to tremble. The whole room seemed to tremble, and then a number of materialized air. 3912, 3,912. Draculaura wondered, what does that mean? The number connected to Cleo. What in the square footage of her pyramid? How old she is? The number of crapertific accessories stashed away on her tome. Okay, maybe not the last one, Draculaura said out loud. Then her gaze drifted over all the monster media. Volumes lining the wall, and inspiration struck. Draculaura hurried over to the bookshelves and started flipping through each volume. She reached 42, and that's where she found the page 3,912 and the entry on Cleo. Cleo Denial. The famed princess of Egypt, Cleo Denial, is re-owned of her new high style of regional presence. The daughter of Ramesses Denial, Princess Cleo is the latest in a long line of Egyptian royalty. She never settles for second best, no matter what. Draculaura paused, reading only long enough to pull out her eye coffin, where she started taking notes as fast as she could. Draculaura even snapped a pic of Cleo's custody hieroglyphics. Cleo loves gold. That's exactly what the info is. Draculaura thought gleefully, gold! Meanwhile, Frankie made her way to underground lab where Monster High Mad Science class would be held, since she'd grown up in the lab, hiding out near the power station. Frankie felt at home the moment she stepped inside her Monster High lab. Botologist! Frankie cried as she ran into the lab, which was silent in the underground tome, except for one sound. Plink, plink, plink. Frankie listened carefully as she tried to figure out where the sound was coming from. Everything in the lab was brand new. All the equipment looked as if it had never been used before. There were long steel counters and workspace and 5 different cabinets filled with beakers, flasks, and test tubes. As Frankie explored, she discovered a massive storage cupboard filled with every element and chemical she'd ever heard of, and even some that she hadn't. The lab had everything she could ever imagine needing it to. Frankie paused and looked at the deep consideration crossed her face. What am I going to do here? She wondered. What is the best way I can help Operation Find Cleo in shocking success? Plink, plink, plink. There was a noise again. Where is that sound coming from? Frankie wondered. She explored the lab a little more and found a section of safety gear that had been completely blinged out. Stud lab coats with monster-fit designs and goggles that dazzled with rhinestones. There was even a selection of hair accessories in every color imaginable, so that ghouls could coordinate their outfits when they tied back their long hair. Draculaura planned for everything. Frankie thought with a grain, safety first doesn't mean fashion last. With all those chemicals and elements, Frankie could try to brew a potion. But what kind of potion? Some kind of a sunscreen would be good for Draculaura, she mused. Actually, it would be good for all of us to lotion up before we head back to the desert, but Frankie wanted to do more to help in the rescue efforts. She paced around the lab, deep in thought, as she explained all the different supplies and material at her disposal. Frankie had been a fend for chemistry ever since she got her first chemistry set, which she'd used to reanimate the dead caterpillar so that it could transform into zombie butterfly. Her dad had never been more proud, but that kind of science wasn't exactly useful right now, or was it? Plink, plink, plink. That noise is driving me crazy, Frankie frowned, as strange sounds distracting her. First things first, she decided, I'm going to find out what's making that noise, then figure out the brilliant idea to make our mission a surefire success. Frankie roamed the entire lab until the last she discovered the sink at the very back of the room. Sure enough, the faucet wasn't turned off enough. It was drip, drip, dripping, and each drop of the water hit the steel sink with a resounding plink. Frankie twisted the faucet to stop the dripping, then smiled in silence. Peace and quiet at last, she thought. But if only it were so easy to find water in the desert of Egypt. Frankie glanced across the room and discovered a large steel box that had been bolted to the wall, and familiar symbols on the capture her attention. High voltage. The smile spread across Frankie's face as the bolts in her neck started sparking. She had found water, all right, and that gave her a brilliant idea. Claudine wandered through the halls of Monster High until she reached the arts wing. She had a funny feeling that this was where all her favorite classes would be. After all, her own mother would be teaching art class. A passion for art definitely ran in Claudine's family. Claudine glanced at the music room, a bright area space where the rafters. There weren't any monsters using the music room, but it was far from silent. Claudine noticed the hornet's nest in the eaves that was bustling with activity. Ugh, she thought, glad that the hornets were way up here and not paying any attention to her. As Claudine explored, she found drawers and drawers of haunting music from all over the monster world, and more instruments than she had ever seen before. A set of small chimes hung from the ceiling. Claudine touched them with her finger, and spooky series of notes materialized and began to float through the air. And then the notes themselves began to play other instruments. Claudine had never seen anything like it. But it was how the musical notes affected the hornets that really captured Claudine's attention. As the music notes filled the room, the hornets stopped buzzing. They hovered over their hive. Silent and transfixed by the gentle tones of the notes, Claudine had never seen drowsy hornets before, but she knew that exactly what these hornets now were, very sleepy. That's so classum, Claudine thought. The unusual powers of chimes gave Claudine an idea. What it is the creepy, crazy one, definitely, but that meant it might work. An hour later, all three ghouls met back at the library. You will not believe how much I learned about Cleo, Claudine raved. I cannot wait to meet her. Here, ghouls, Frankie said as she passed the tube of thick white paste on them. I made some sunscreen. Gotta take care of your skin. What's that? Claudine asked, pointing at the silver stick-like thing that Frankie had tucked under her arm. You'll see, Frankie said mysteriously. I don't want to spoil the big surprise. Mysteriously? Mysterious? Giggled Draculaura. Then she turned to Claudine. What did you learn? You know how they say that music has charms and soothes the savage beastie? Asked Claudine. Draculaura and Frankie nodded. Well, you are not going to believe what it does to hornets, Claudine announced. She held up the suet pouch and shook it so that the fridge dangling, from it dancing back and forth. I'm confused. You're going to tickle it to death with fringe? Guessed Frankie. Claudine's eyes twinkled. Even better, she replied, and that's all I'm going to say. So many spooky secrets, Draculaura said, shaking her head. If you two would spill until we get back to the desert, then I guess we'd better get going. She held out the skullet. By now, everyone knew the drill. Cleo exacto monstrum. Whoosh. And that is the end of Chapter 8, Part 8. And I will see you guys later.